Hey there all, welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. We're back. We had a 2-week hiatus. You guys got a video of Marshall being asked questions as an atheist with a group of young adults at our church, at New Life Church. And so we've had like a week off, and we're like, okay, hey, gotta get back on the saddle and back into it. So yeah, my name is Scott. This is my friend Marshall. We've known each other in high school for years. I'm a pastor and he's an atheist, and we get together and have this podcast and have discussions. And I'm a conservative pastor, and you're a liberal atheist, and we have all kinds of fun. Has not resulted in any actual physical contact yet.
Well, we'll see.
And you can always catch us here, currentcast.com, Sunday nights at 5. Follow us on A Valid Answer. Email us, avalidanswer@gmail.com, or check us out. We have this is like episode 35 or something like that, 36. I'm starting to lose track. But all of our episodes are available on iTunes podcasts, and you can follow us there. They're actually also on YouTube. If you follow us on YouTube, subscribe to that. Would really appreciate it, because we start getting those subscribe numbers up and be like, yeah, people start finding us. And why is it important for people to find us? Because we want to be famous?
Because we want more people to discuss our ideas. Not
necessarily our ideas, but we want more people to have the discussion.
Ideas on the show.
We want people to have the discussion.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're bringing stuff up and to discuss that. But just the idea of having a discussion, of getting face to face, that person right there next to you, and realizing even if you can't see the person, if they're not right there next to you, when you're typing on your computer, to go ahead and remember that there is a human being on the other side of that. And if your argument only wins because you have to assume that other person is evil or stupid, then your argument isn't really that strong. So you cannot just that person's just stupid. Obviously they're wrong because they're evil. And now you're not discussing anything. You're not learning anything. You're not actually accomplishing anything. You are just living in an echo chamber. And that's what we are not wanting to happen. We want more open discussions like this, because this is what's going to bring about actual change. That's why we do what we do, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Right now, our church, we're in a series called Why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of got that on my brain.
There you go.
And just a shameless shout out, at least as it is right now. If you come to our Northwest campus next week on November 25th, I'll be teaching the message. So you're invited to come to church.
Now I'm on the hook.
Now you're on the hook to come to our Northwest campus. You're not actually on the hook.
What day of the week is it?
It's on a Sunday.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see. All right.
Okay, so Marshall, tell us what we're talking about, because we're saying, hey, what should we talk about? And I suggested something, and then you retorted with something else. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. So what are we talking about?
Okay, so I came across a quote by a guy named Norman Bethune, who's a noted, he was a doctor and a communist, by the way. He was Canadian.
Full disclosure.
Right. And he said this, and this is very thought-provoking when I saw it. He said, charity should be abolished and replaced by justice. So that really set my gears turning. I'm like, at first, my first reaction was, what do you mean abolish charity? Charity is important. It makes a difference, right? There's a lot of people. My friend Scott works in charity. He's a charitable enterprise. Church religion is very charitable. So does that mean I'm saying Scott and his church should be abolished and be replaced by justice? Well, anyway, I had all of these different thoughts.
Yep.
And I went down this logical path. And I think I kind of agree with this quote. So I want to pitch something at you. And I think as a Christian, if you understand the logic the way I worked it out,
all right,
you would almost have to agree. So here's my question to you.
Yes.
Do you agree that human life has inherent value? It's valuable regardless of its productivity.
I believe that human life has value because of the sacrifice that God made, that his son made for every individual. That the value of human life is based on the value that God holds for you as an individual, that he loves you so much that he sent his son to die on a cross for your sin, so that no matter what you did, grace can be given and forgiven. So everyone has the value of the life of Christ. So
Good. I like that answer. I thought that was the answer you would put out.
Yep.
Now, here's a question.
Yes.
Couch potato versus a person who works 40 hours a week, which one has the more valuable life?
Well, like I said, Jesus died for all of your sins. So the value in the individual life is placed upon that person. According to my beliefs, the value is on the opportunity given to all. That God has offered grace, and if you'd like to use another word, charity. God has offered charity to take over justice. God has offered that, saying that your life, there is nothing as a human being that you can do to earn heaven. That you are innately sinful. That Romans 3:23, that because of our sins, that everyone has sinned and falls short of the glory of God. That for a person to demand justice is to demand hell.
I got him going.
Yep. That for a person to demand justice is to demand hell upon themselves. And God says, I love you so much that I'm going to offer you grace and charity. If you accept it, you do not have to be affected by justice. So their value the value given is the value of the opportunity. What you do with the opportunity determines the outcome of that value. So your choice, giving the equal opportunity, your choices determine your outcome, not your initial value. Your initial value gives you the opportunity gives everyone the same opportunity to choose the grace and the charity. If you choose not to have it, then the outcome now is upon your choices. So to go directly to yours, the value of a couch potato and a value of a worker, both of those are their choices. They've both been given equal opportunity. The couch potato has chosen not to take that opportunity. They have lowered their own value. The person who has taken the opportunity has raised their value. So by their choices, they are not equal in value because of their choices. Not because of the love of God, not because of who they are as human beings, but because of their choices, they have either lowered or raised their own value.
Okay, so one of the words that I found interesting is the word justice. And you and I have had a little bit of a debate over what the word justice means. Now, for me, the way I interpret justice, it means giving each person their due.
Okay.
So basically, one way that I look at this is if you perform labor, you should receive, let's say, at least in this country, we've decided the work week should be 40 hours.
Okay.
And so, in my personal opinion, if a person works for 40 hours, they should not require any kind of welfare or charitable assistance because that individual should be paid enough to afford a basic living for themselves.
Okay.
And I believe that if you value a person's life, then it requires you to literally pay for each hour that they work 1/40th of that basic living at a minimum. Because if you pay beneath that, then you are literally discounting the value of that human life because the life is being rented to you. It's being sold to you in increments of 1 hour. So any person
by a price they agree to.
Well, I'm not talking about negotiating the price. I'm saying there should be a minimum, like literally a minimum wage, if you will. But the minimum wage should be a living wage, and 1 hour should equal 1/40th of the minimum living wage. Well, again, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details.
The details is where your idea fails. That's the problem.
Well, that's because we're talking about the broad strokes here. I think we can absolutely work out a rubric or an algorithm for how you determine. But not
without introducing injustice to others.
I disagree.
No, absolutely. You cannot do that without introducing injustice to others.
There's nothing more unjust than the status quo. So that's why I want to talk about the idea, and then we can get granular later. But we have to nail down what I mean by the idea. So here's the deal. Do you believe that all people should work for their living?
Yes.
Okay, well, there you go. So I like that idea myself. I do. I think unless there is a reason such as physical or mental incapacity.
Yes. Actual disability.
Correct. You and I agree. You should work for your living, and that work week should be 40 hours. And in exchange for a person who does that, you should receive a basic living.
But where? That's the thing. You cannot define basic living. That's where the problem comes in. You're
Well,
not
there is a way to handle that.
You're not
There is a
able
way
to
to handle
define
that.
that.
There is a way to
Because
handle
a basic living in rural Iowa is not a basic living in downtown New York.
Correct. So what you do is you establish what they call a basket of goods. It's the same way that we calculate inflation.
Mm-hmm.
You establish a basket of goods. Here's the things that a person needs, including rent, transportation, healthcare, education, food, etc. All of a person's basic needs.
Are you actually supplying it as a basket of goods?
No, you're supplying it. It comes out to a dollar amount, and that dollar amount.
So you're willing to pay people more based on where they live.
Yes.
So you're going to flood people to these places where they pay more.
No, because there's not
You're
going
gonna
to
put
be
a
infinite
limit.
jobs.
You're going to put a limit.
Well, there's a natural limit because there's not
right,
jobs.
but that's not going to stop people from coming. So now you're going to have this area that pays more.
Yeah, it'll
flooded.
stop them because there's no jobs for them. So how are they going to earn
So now
their
they're going to
living?
be homeless in that place.
Not necessarily. They're not.
You're
That's not
in,
the case
you're,
now.
You're in, that's the case in California.
Not
with all
necessarily.
that's why there's so
Okay.
many homeless in California, because there's so many free homeless programs. California has so many homeless people, more disproportionately to other places, because there are so many places in California that offer this free stuff. So what's rewarded will be repeated.
Okay, so would you then say, let's eliminate the welfare system, or at least the bulk of the welfare system, and replace that charity, because welfare is charity, and replace it
No,
with
it is
justice?
not. Hold on. No. You can't. You don't get to define that.
Okay.
No, you don't get to redefine that. Charity is choice. Charity is me choosing to spend my money charitably for this. If you're using tax dollars, that's money that was forcibly removed from me, and now you've
It's
taken.
forced charity.
You bet, but it's not charity. Charity is voluntary.
compulsory charity.
But that's you don't get to define that word. You don't get to redefine charity. Charity is from the heart. Charity is personal from the heart. So it's not charity. You don't get to use that word. That's a misappropriation of that word.
Okay,
Here's what you want.
what
This is why words are important. You want to use the word charity because there is a value to that word. There is an established value to that word. So you want to use the word charity, and you want to twist it to fit your definition of what you want, because there is a value to that word charity that you want to appropriate for your belief. You don't get to do that. I don't let you do that here. You don't get to change the definition of words to gain the value of that word. So you don't get to use the word charity when you're discussing welfare system. That is not charity.
All right, fine. What word would you feel more comfortable in place of charity?
What it is. It's welfare.
Okay, so how about welfare should be abolished and replaced with justice?
Welfare should be abolished and replaced with charity.
Why, though? Why
Because
would you do
justice is somebody earning.
that? Right. Why not
Welfare,
justice? Why charity in place of
welfare is
justice?
giving to what is not earned.
Okay, and by the way, I understand that is also subject to debate because welfare is a very broad umbrella term.
Yes,
We
yes,
talk
it is.
about
Yes, it's
entitlements, we
in
talk about
general.
Medicare, Social Security, unemployment, things
I mean,
that you actually pay into.
My
but-
sister receives from welfare because she's disabled. She's physically disabled, has cerebral
Which,
palsy, and
in
she
my
receives,
definition, is a form of social charity. It's compulsory that we pay into it. Although, by the way, I'm glad it's there.
Yes, me too. And I believe that there should be some form of welfare for disabled people.
And I agree with you there.
And it's defining what is disabled.
But whether it's charity, welfare, however we want to define it, shouldn't justice rule? In other words, if you work 40 hours, shouldn't you receive a basic living?
You have to determine what is due. That's the definition.
That's right. That's where the basket of goods comes in.
Yes. And that's where if you actually delivered it as a basket of goods, that might actually work.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like if you literally delivered it as I don't mean like a literal basket, but to say this can't be spent anywhere except for rent. This can't be spent anywhere except for food. This can't be spent anywhere except for this. It might actually work because then because then there's no drive to move to where they pay you more money. You can, here's this basket of goods. Where you live, it has this value. Where they live, it has that value, but it's still the basic thing. But once it's turned into cash, now you are giving more money and more money will always draw the people over there. If you actually could find a way to deliver it as a basket of goods, that might actually work.
that's been tried before in the Soviet Union.
Right?
And it actually worked.
Yeah, because the Soviet Union is still in existence today.
Well, no, but the idea is that people did receive literally a basket of goods, if you will.
Yeah.
They received their rent, they received their food, and so on. Now,
So everybody was equally miserable.
Right. The Soviet Union had many other problems, right?
But you're smarter. You're smarter, and you've got a better idea. You'll do it better.
You're the one
better
who
than
said
them.
literally hand it out as a basket of goods.
No, I'm saying the only
I
way.
was suggesting handing it out as cash.
No, I'm
handing
saying
out as
the
wages.
only way your system could be successful, to define successful as it will still ultimately fail, but the only way that your system could actually function in the way that you see it would be to hand it out in a basket of goods. I still don't agree that that's the answer. That's still going to cause what brought down the Soviet Union, because it's the same problems over. Just because you think you're smarter and you figured it out doesn't mean you're not going to come to the same outcome that they did. Human nature is human nature. And you're not going to overcome human nature.
Right.
So,
and I agree with you on the point that human nature is human nature and you're not going to necessarily overcome it. Nonetheless, what problem do you have with giving people a living wage?
the problem is defining it. You
Okay.
cannot define a living wage.
Let's say you can, though. Let's say you could.
You cannot without offering injustice to others. You
How?
cannot. You cannot.
How so?
You cannot define that this is how much you will make and this is how much your life is worth. You can't get the government to say you are worth this amount of money per year. You are worth this living. As soon as you're doing that, you are defining and limiting their value based on your law.
Not limiting anything, because a person can earn above that. They can be paid more than that. There's no upper limitation. There's a bottom limitation that makes it so that they don't
But
require
somebody still has
charity.
to pay for that. Somebody still has to pay for that.
Right.
And now
And
you're
who do
taking
you think should
and
pay
now
for
you're
that?
taking from others.
Who?
Me.
Who are you? Are you their employer?
No, you're taking my taxes and you're giving it to someone else.
But that's the beauty of this, is I lower your taxes. Because if the employer pays a living wage, the employer who should be making money off their 40 hours of labor.
But it doesn't matter if you're lowering.
You no longer need your tax
Hold on. I got my gun on you. It's okay. It's okay. I'm no longer going to take $50. I'm only going to take 40. Aren't I great? That's the argument you're trying to make.
You know what? I'd rather lose 40 than 50. Right?
I'd rather you not point the gun at me at all.
Well, that would be great, but
Right.
unfortunately, that's not human nature, right? Which we're not going to change.
Right.
So there's always going to be somebody.
There's always going to be
there's
always going to be taxes.
part with your
but
hard-earned dollars.
But as long as I get to choose where the taxes are spent, it's not going to be giving to people who can earn their own.
But what is wrong with an employer paying a living wage to their workers so that the workers no longer require welfare?
Again, it comes down to the definition of what you're going to, because that can be redefined infinitely.
What are you talking about? Because you said the definition. What specific definition?
The definition of what is a living wage.
Okay.
That can be redefined indefinitely.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, okay,
Outside of the individual. The individual no matter what the individual does. Because see, here's the thing. You say justice. I'm going to go to the definition of justice, because what I'm challenging is your definition of the word due. That your definition of the word justice, which is get what's due. What did you say?
giving each person their due.
Giving each person their due.
You perform an hour of labor, you should get an hour of wages.
In the maintenance, justice, the maintenance or administration of what is just, especially by the impartial adjustment of conflicting claims or the assignment of merited rewards or punishments.
I don't see that our definitions disagree. Where do they disagree?
That justice is merit-based.
I agree. I agree that justice is merit-based. And I think that if you earn merit by working, you deserve a living wage.
But justice, as it applies, we're talking about you're talking about legal justice. You're talking about making laws that are going to establish
it would be a matter
legal,
of law. It would have to be as a matter of law, yes.
Yes, but you cannot establish a law that guarantees possession, a specific possession to someone.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about
you're establishing
giving
a law,
a person a living wage.
Yeah, you're guaranteeing that they will have a certain possession.
That they will have a living wage in exchange for work, yes.
But
we do that in the status quo. We already have minimum wage laws. The problem is just the minimum wages are too low. The only thing I'm talking about is moving those numbers up so that people receive
progressives
a
always
living
do.
amount of money. So I don't see where my argument fails, because the only difference is a difference of degree. We're already doing this in the status quo.
And I don't agree.
So you want to abolish the minimum wage, or what? You don't agree with the minimum wage?
I don't agree with the idea of the minimum wage.
Okay, why? Why not? Why shouldn't a person receive
Because
a living wage for a week's work?
Not all jobs are living wage jobs.
But wait a second. Didn't you just say that the value of human life is independent of productivity? Didn't you agree that all life has value? And if that's
I said
the
all
case,
life has value of choice because of the choices.
Okay, but I'm selling you my life.
If I'm riding my bike every morning and delivering newspapers, that is not a job that deserves a living wage.
Is it a 40-hour-a-week job?
No, it's not.
Okay, then how many hours a week is it?
It's like 5 hours in the morning.
Okay, then
No,
you
not
would
even
get
that. What is it, like 2 or 3 hours in the morning?
how many at the end of a week? How many hours would you have worked? 10, 20, 10?
Yeah.
Okay, then it's worth 25% of a living wage. Period. End of sentence. Delivering newspapers would then entitle you, for 10 hours of work, you'd get a quarter of a living wage.
And what's a living wage?
Well, that will be dependent upon your local cost of living. Where
How
you
local?
live. I'm not sure.
You have to be able to define that.
It would certainly be at the district level. The district of a town or community that you live in, or the zip code, or maybe even finer than that. But regardless of whether the variation is between when you're looking at a city like New York, the difference might be $1 here versus $1 there. And nobody's going to move for just $1 an hour across the city of New York, if it's even that much. Mm-hmm. What you might see is somebody say, I'm going to move from the Midwest to New York. But remember,
and find that there's no jobs.
But here's the thing. You talked about a basket of goods that they would get the same. And that's the thing, is the basket of goods in the Midwest has a lower value, a lower mm-hmm. price, I should say, than the basket of goods in New York. You're not going to get ahead by moving, because you're not going to have any more money in your pocket, because at the end of the day, you still need food, shelter, healthcare, transportation, clothing, education.
That's what I was saying. The only way your system could work is if it was an actual basket of goods. That's the only way once it goes to cash, it
What's the
breaks
big
it
difference
down.
though? Doesn't the person in Idaho also need an apartment the same as the person in New York?
Yes.
Okay. So,
but
one person gets 800, the other person gets 400.
Once it's cash,
what's the difference?
The difference is once it's cash, they can say, "Hey, I'm going to go and find someplace cheaper, and I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to get more money, and I'm going to spend it how I want to on this kind of stuff."
But that's your choice,
right? But now
you're choosing that, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you're okay with flooding the markets, flooding those cities with people who can't get jobs.
There's a finite number of jobs, and so if you move there and you can't get a job, guess what? You're not going to get your basket of goods. So you're not going to have a wage.
You agree that they can fall below that level. You saying if you choose, you're agreeing with me that if you choose to make a bad decision, that it's okay for that person to fall below that level of living.
Then they would simply be dependent upon charity, wouldn't they be?
Yes.
But they would
But that's not the argument you're making. But that's not the argument you're making.
I'm agreeing with you, Scott.
I know.
And so what I'm saying is...
So your argument is moot.
But, here's the difference. The difference is if I made a bad decision, decides I'm going to reverse my bad decision by getting a job, they would be much more likely to do that because now they know they're going to get justice. In other words, they know they're going to access that basket of goods. I made a bad decision by moving from the Midwest or wherever the cost of living was lower, moving to the big city. Now I don't have a job. Now I don't have my basic needs, but I know I can either move home or I can do something else to find a job, and as soon as I have a job, my basic needs will be restored.
I think the compromise,
justice.
I think the compromise then that would bring justice, I think the compromise would be that all welfare programs outside of a disability would have to be terminated in order for that law to be effective.
Well, they would be redundant. Well, exactly. You wouldn't need the welfare program for a person who's working full time.
But you wouldn't. You would have to be part of the law. It would have to be part of the law that those are terminated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you more or less agree with me.
I think I could almost get into that if it came with the abolishment of the welfare system outside of disability and a clearly defined disability. Because if I'm getting this if I understand the point you're making, it's not a point of here is a minimum universal income for everyone.
It's not universal. You have to work to get it.
This is the minimum you can be paid. And so it's not making the argument that everyone deserves this living wage. It's not that everyone deserves this living. You're making the argument that everyone deserves this living wage. And if they work.
Yes.
And if they don't, there is no welfare system to catch them.
They would be dependent on charity.
Then in that definition, yes, I would agree with that.
Well, there you go, folks.
Yes.
I think this is our shortest episode yet.
Because I made the assumption that you were coming from the idea that there is that no matter what, everybody needs to be here whether they work or not. And I cannot ever get behind that. But if the argument you're making is that there is this definition, as long as that argument comes with it, the abolishment of welfare systems, then that system would, the system that you're describing for minimum payment would, what's the word I'm looking for? Motivate
absolutely
people to work.
And I agree with that, and I like that system because people would know now. Because
it's just odd because this is exactly the opposite of what you've argued before when we were talking about universal.
Well, because this is a different topic.
Gotcha. But
here's the thing: is Norman Bethune was a communist, and a lot of people assume that socialists or communists are lazy people. And I want to make this argument because I cannot state it emphatically enough. Look at the icons of communism and the icons of socialism: hammers, sickles, sheaves of wheat, gears, even AK-47s. I've said this before. These are all symbols of labor and struggle. Socialism in all of its forms, especially communism, which is really extreme socialism, if you will, expects and demands labor of its followers, of its practitioners. You have to work. You don't have the option to not work. In fact, in the Soviet Union, people who either did not work, who called in sick all the time, who slow worked, if you will, were literally cut off of public assistance as a punishment for doing that. Because in the Soviet Union, they were given the basket of goods, and then the government or whoever would find out, hey, you're not showing up to work, you're calling in sick every other day. Well, then we're cutting you off to discourage that kind of behavior. There were other problems with the Soviet Union. I don't want to get into a critique of how the Soviet economy failed. But I do want to say that socialism is not synonymous with lazy. And if you think that socialism is a free meal ticket, you are signed up to the wrong crowd.
But it is the position that you have stood behind.
I have
before.
argued previously that, and I do agree that all human beings should receive a basic standard of living below which we do not let anyone fall. And I base that because I value human life. I believe that once you are born, you are entitled to a certain basic minimum simply by virtue of being a human being. I believe that all human beings are entitled to that basic minimum level of dignity.
I believe that human beings have self-dignity. That I do not believe I do not believe a able-bodied adult who allows another able-bodied adult to support them is a dignified human being.
Right.
They're undignified.
I think
they're undignified themselves.
And I would agree with you that they are discounting themselves and their own dignity. They're living beneath their dignity when they do that.
No, we are allowing them to live beneath their dignity.
Well, I think if we create a program where we replace welfare with justice, then I think it makes it a lot more motivating for people to go out there and get a job and work.
Because as long as there's no safety net for them to fall on, other than charity, because that's what
What about unemployment, though? What if a person is trying to work? So I think the next part of this, and I didn't really get into this, there would have to be some sort of a jobs guarantee. There would have to be, if you will, a federal program where anybody who wants a job will get a job. All they have to do is show up and say, I want a job.
That exists right now.
Does it?
Yes.
In what form?
People just don't want the jobs that are available.
Okay, and that may be the problem, but that's your personal problem. If you want justice, if you want a living, you might have to do a job that you think is beneath you that you don't want to do.
Exactly.
But everybody should be contributing something to the social good, if you will, in the form of work and labor and so on. So If anything should motivate you, it should be that, to motivate you to get your education, to develop your skills, to work for a private employer, doing something that is much more in line with your personal preferences and character. Right?
You sound more like a conservative libertarian than I've ever heard you sound. So I'm not quite sure what's happened.
But yes, this is almost extreme socialism that I'm pitching to you. It's crazy how they kind of come around and almost being on the other side. So
the socialism part is the no one falling below a certain level.
Well, that's my humanist side, if you will, and yes, it is socialist, and I do think I don't want to see a person literally starve to death or go without a roof over their head or basic medical care, even if they choose to be a drug addict or a couch potato. So, I think those people need medical care, serious attention.
They need charity.
Yeah.
So what we've established at the end of this is that you need justice and charity.
I might have to give you that one because, you're right?
Otherwise, if you have this justice that you're talking about and social welfare, now you are being injustice to the people who are paying and giving it to someone who's not working. So in order for this justice of payment, this justice of income for a job, you have to have no social programs by the government that's paid for by taxes. Has to be by charity, has to be by people's giving. That way, in order for this to work, you can't have the safety net that people can just couch potatoes, sit back and reap from other people's work. I can't stand behind the idea of reaping from someone else's work. Mm-hmm.
And you and I think, are still going to disagree. At least, when I say a person should have a basic minimum beneath which we don't let them fall, I'm not talking about a comfortable existence. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily want those people to be comfortable, unless, of course, they're not there by their own choice. If they're stuck there and they can't get out of there again because of disability,
because of disability, because of disability.
But if I decide I'm just going to go on the dole and be flat out lazy, I deserve to live an uncomfortable. Well, you're right.
You deserve to live off the charity of others.
Precisely. And I would agree with you that it would be unjust to give that person anything.
Yes.
However, the humanist side of me says...
That's why you need charity. Because charity is grace. Grace is giving what someone doesn't deserve. Mm-hmm. They don't deserve that, but I'm going to be charitable and give that to them. Mm-hmm. That's why you need charity. Mm-hmm. You'll always need charity. You can't replace charity with justice.
That's a good point. Well, I guess in my defense, Norman Bethune was, arguing this about a century ago, before the modern welfare state really existed. And, the Soviet welfare state did exist by the time he died in 1939. Nonetheless... I think it's very interesting. We
have Josh Gunderson says here, I think we both, Scott and Marshall and Josh, in agreement. All three of us here in agreement. You need justice and charity. And my goodness, I think we've concluded a very odd show indeed, in that we have come to a conclusion that we both agree.
I thought you would agree. I said you would agree.
Right. But again, it's actually you who've agreed with me.
Oh, I don't know. You've agreed with the communist.
Well, no, see.
Although not the word charity. But yes.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I think when he used the word charity, I think he may have meant it in the form of welfare or something like that. He meant it differently than,
He tried to define charity as being mandatory charity, which is not charity.
Right.
Socialists have a tendency to do that. They want to redefine it because charity is out of the kindness of your heart, not pulled from your pocket at gunpoint. Mm-hmm. That's not charity. So you can feel charitable. That's what I don't like about, what liberals in general want to say. You're not being very charitable. We need to have these government programs. Hold on. That's not charity. That's taking other people's money and giving it to someone else forcibly. Charity is, hey, you rich liberal, you give your millions and you pay personally. You establish your own food bank. You use your money. Don't say, well, hey, I'm going to give to the government and the government's going to... No, you make your choice. You give it...
Well, if we cut the government out by ensuring justice, by establishing a living wage for 40 hours of work, then in that case, you don't need any government interference whatsoever. Yes.
And
You don't
no
need the
government
taxes,
interference is great.
and the business pays less taxes, and the individual taxpayer pays less, and the end result is everybody gets their due. And it's more efficient because when the government administers a welfare program, it probably costs 2 or 3 times the amount of money that's actually going to the end user because there's multiple administrators and other people who have to manage the program.
Josh is talking about this here. Josh can understand some artists, some people view artists as lazy, but in Germany you can get an artist grant to do nothing. But I can't finish reading the rest of it, but basically it's like you can get a grant. But again, that's the government providing a job. That's where I won't cross that line of saying, so then we need a government program to supply jobs. No, the jobs are out there. It's not like, hey, I want to be an artist and I want the government to pay me this living wage so that I can do what I want to do. No, that's not justice.
Right. The government will fill the jobs that need to be done.
Yeah.
If here's
an artist's job. Here's a job that requires an artist. So go do that job. Here's this
because
job.
You're an artist.
Yeah,
you're a professional artist.
But I am a professional artist, and it is possible to do that. But what I'm saying is, I have found a job that needs the art that I do.
Right.
I'm not expecting the government to say, "Hey, give me money to be an artist, and then I will create what I want." That's not.
And the government has hired artists before.
Yeah,
in fact, it does all the time.
Yeah, you can commission an artist. Hey, I have this job. I need this artist to do it. But it's on the basis of get this job done, not, oh, you want money to be an artist. Well, here's this money. You get to be an artist and do whatever you want. That's not what we're talking about. So I wouldn't cross that line to say that government needs to now supply jobs for people, because then that's just another form of welfare. That basically just saying, oh, you want to do what you want to do and you want money to do it. Right.
Well, okay, there you go. Well, do you disagree with us? Let me know. Let Scott know. Chime in. Because I think this is pretty solid. So,
yeah. And Josh, to ask your last question, I think it's up to you to keep yourself off the street. He asked, even if it keeps the person off the street, it's up to you to keep yourself off the street. That's what brings you dignity. That's what gives you and makes you a responsible person.
Well, I agree with that. The only problem is there are a lot of people who don't seem to be able to keep themselves off the street. And I would imagine most people who live on the street would prefer to not live on the street, but they've made choices that landed them there and they don't know quite how to get out of it.
My experience is most of them are there because they don't want to have to follow the rules.
Okay, and there you go.
So they're choosing.
So these are people who need some kind of care and attention so that, they get their thinking
and again,
straight,
Josh,
their mind straight, their health straight.
Yeah, so Josh, if there was a specific thing they wanted to do, that's fine. Germany was making art as adding a benefit to society. Yeah, we want to benefit society, so we want to create this art. We have this art piece. Again, that's Germany saying, here is a job. I need artists to fill this job. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about an artist who just wants to get money to do what they want.
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah. There. So, but I see where you're going with Josh, because maybe they just want to promote art and just give artists money to create whatever they want, and that is promoting art. But again, now to me, I guess it could be seen as we're buying a product. We're buying your product, but we're not determining what the product is. So I can see how that can work out that way. Mm-hmm. So. Well, hey, this has been a valid answer. We actually ended on an agreement, and sometimes that happens. Join us every Sunday at 5 o'clock right here on kerncast.com. Search for Kerncast on Facebook. And until next time, hugs and love from us, because apparently,
I didn't know if we were going to box this one out, but what?
All right. Until next time. See you guys.
See ya.